It's kind of a beyond.
Okay, it is 12:02 on the Eastern time. So we are going to go get started. Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Diane Neem. I'm the Institutional Director of Research and the chair for the Research and Scholarship Collaborative, hosts of this Lunch and Learn program that you are attending. Welcome. We are very happy to host today Dr. Moreno, who is going to talk to us about the changing psychology of today's workforce, which I'm sure is going to be extremely interesting. Dr. Moreno is the founder and president of Human Intelligent Workplace, a seasoned consultant, educator, and Air Force veteran. Thank you so much. With extensive experience across multiple industries, including aerospace, government, and higher education. He specializes in leadership development, executive coaching, and workplace strategies with a particular focus on human intelligence in the era of artificial intelligence. Dr. Moreno speaks nationally and internationally on topics such as today's changing workforce, neuro-leadership, and the implications of human capital trends for organizations and their leaders. He teaches for Keiser University and one of our Latin American campuses in Nicaragua. Welcome, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I appreciate those that were able to join us today. Thank you for your time. I hope to make this as informative as possible. I will.
Okay, I will double check that.
Somebody might want to go on mute. Thank you. And so I will be downloading some information with you all, but at the same time, along the way, I'll pause. Do please don't hesitate to put comments and questions in the chat, so that way as I look over, I can either address them then or address them as I pause. There are those individuals, I just shared one with Matthew Gerd Learnhardt, I think is his last name, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, who considers themselves futurists, and he does speak some very good stuff, share some very good information, which I share with my students, but I don't call myself that. I consider myself more of a trends advisor. So I study the trends and look at them, and then I put it up to either clients or I put them up to even my students who work in different organizations and say, look in the mirror, how well is your organization addressing these changes and what's going on? So that's what I hope to engage you all. As was mentioned earlier, I started in the Air Force a long time ago talking about this kind of work. Back in the day, we didn't call it DE&I, we called it human relations. For those in Florida, I got trained here at Patrick Air Force Base, which is over in Melbourne, many years ago. And ever since, and got involved in leadership development. And since I got out of the Air Force, continued in that realm. And since then, I've continued to either write, speak, write multiple books and articles and so forth on what is a passion for me about helping the workplace be a little bit smarter going forward. So let's get started. First of all, one of my books that I wrote back a few years ago was called The Perfect Human Capital Storm, and it included some of these trends. At the time, though, artificial intelligence was not part of it. So these are some of the trends. I'm just going to touch a little bit on them. I'm particularly going to focus on the changing workforce psychology of today. But these are some of the trends that are taking place, and the question you need to ask yourself is, how ready is my organization, whether I work at Keiser or whether I work for somebody else? Some of the students work, if there's any students on, I know Matthew's one of them, may work for an organization, and there's changes taking place. And this is some of the things I share with some of my students down in Latin America. So the question that needs to be asked is, are the leaders in the workforce ready for these changes? Because they're all happening at the same time. And one of the things that I keep coming across is that people are the ultimate drivers of organizational performance, in spite of all of the changes that are going on and so forth. Now, this is a term that came up years ago with the Army, VUCA, or an acronym really, which stood for volatile, uncertainty, complex, and ambiguity, which is the environment that they were dealing with when they were in action, in war. I found this on LinkedIn because obviously, VUCA, there's a new term called BANI and brittle and some other things. But I found this on LinkedIn and I thought it was appropriate because I'm going to share some of the things that are going on in the workplace from a VUCA perspective, but I'm also going to jump to the other side and basically give hope that if you turn it upside down or look at the glass half full, with a vision, understanding, clarity, and agility, organizations can adapt, leaders can adapt and make changes going forward. So I will share with you initially the glass half empty, and then I'll embark into the glass half full and the opportunities that organizations have. So I'm going to ask you all a favor if you're willing to take it. I'm going to do something I never do with students. I do not give exams. I do not give quizzes because, as I tell my students, I'm not here to help you memorize. I'm here to help you learn and critically analyze things. So if you don't mind, I'm going to give you all 30 seconds on a piece of paper. Write the answers you think that are the answers to these questions. Number one, what percent of organizational change efforts fail? Number two, what percent of workers would give up a pay raise to see their boss fired? Number three, what percent of workers who prefer to work remote? Or what is the percent of workers? Number four, what is the number cause of death from 1 through 100? Number five, what are the percent of leaders experience burnout? And number six, the bonus, AI is expected to replace how many workers? So I'll give you 30 seconds to guess away. Write that. Just give me a quick one or something, a sign, an indicator, let me know you're done. And if you don't mind showing your faces, that would be helpful too. As I tell my students when I'm talking to them in Latin America, I need to see something versus just initials. So if you're okay and not shy, or unless you're having lunch, please do share your face. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Dennis. Thank you, Matthew. Now I see the gator behind you. So go ahead and complete this real quick. Let me know when you're done. Give me a thumbs up or a one in the chat if you actually take it. No one gives me a thumbs up. That means no one took it. All right, well, let's get going. Before I engage in the psychology of today's workforce, there's a context or a backdrop I think I need to share with you all that's taking place today. You can kind of reflect on it, think about your own workplace experience, whether it's at Keiser, think about some of the students you may have in front of you in classes and so forth in the world that they work in. First of all, change is essential and needed going forward. And if you don't change, then you become the Blockbuster of the past and other organizations that do not exist anymore. For those old enough to remember Sears has got just a few stores left. That's probably the grandfather of Amazon at one time. But for almost 90% of executives, they say, yes, change is important. We need to continue to adapt. For 1 out of 2 HR professionals, they say it's important. I'm not sure why it's only 1 out of 2. But yet, when it comes to change efforts, as much as organizations continue to change, this is the first answer. 66% of change efforts fail. So I'm literally going to tell you a story in numbers as we go through it. And for the second time in 35 years, the defining word has become uncertainty. The only time it was higher was during the pandemic. And just so you understand something, I'm going to actually speak to this going forward. In the next session that I do next week, the brain has a high intolerance for uncertainty. We are not wired that way. We're wired for certainty. And I'll talk more about that in next week's session where I talk about neuroscience and neuroleadership. So in a time of uncertainty, a lot of us are rather uncomfortable. And it doesn't help that companies as big as Amazon is cutting thousands of jobs. They're calling it voluntary quit. And 4 years ago, there was an article in the New York Times where actually Bezos came out and said blue collar workforce is on a march to mediocrity. And because of that, he encouraged employee turnover. Now that's having a backlash because in those major facilities where they have thousands of people working, if after 3 years you've turned over your workforce, the reputation gets around the community and says maybe that's not the best place to go work. And there was actually an article was written about that a secret memo was within the organization that eventually became visible. They were basically saying we're having problems now recruit. But here they are again, pushing people out the door. And so what's happening is from long-term unemployment, you can see as of August 25th, overall unemployment is up slightly in 2025, and the long-term unemployment rate is at a 3-year high. So that's creating some problems. I know, and that's very true, Matthew. Which I wrote an article and put it on my website. The more organizations change, the more they remain the same, if you want to look at that. So that's a little bit of the backdrop. But here's another one. There's some other trends that are taking place. We have an aging world and a multi-generational workforce. The United States is not behind. It takes 2.1 to replace the workforce, and that includes births, deaths, immigration and emigration, and the United States just dropped from 2.1 to 1.6. And you see there, we have more 60-year-olds than 5-year-olds, and yet, in spite of ageism and maybe discrimination against older people, in 2023, the fastest growing demographic in the workforce was actually over 75. So people are living longer and continuing to work just to keep themselves busy in some form, fashion, or another. And what's not helping the situation is this acronym called DINKS, dual income those kids. And I saw it here in the news a few months ago where this couple came up that were fairly affluent in their mid 30s, and they said, we're just not going to have kids for now. So that's what's impacting that. And then behind that aging population is a growing multicultural workforce. Most of you are here in Florida, some of you are in Georgia, but this decade alone, 78% of the new entrants into the workforce are Latinos. And these are legal Latinos, by the way. And the age difference between Latinos and non-Latinos, you can see that, 17 to 34. So you can see what's going to happen over the next few years. And add to that there's this growing skill shortage. This is just a sampling of them. But the top skills needed going forward is going to be interpersonal skills. So how organizations and leaders address these opportunities and challenges is either going to provide a competitive advantage for them or not. And of course, everybody's thinking AI is going to solve everything. This is an interesting magazine that I came across. It just started. And this is the very first the very first article I read in this magazine said this. Most of the articles you'll read here were originally written by AI, then rewritten, fact-checked, and edited, or as I like to call it, humanized. Now, those people that are concerned about, and there's companies like Matthew said that are trying to displace all these workers because of AI, I'm going to share some information here with you. If we think we haven't been here before, when the PC came into existence, which seems like 100 years ago, it eliminated almost 4 million jobs, but created 20 million new jobs. And for AI, it's expected that it'll eliminate 92 million jobs, but create 170 million jobs in the next few years by 2030. And IBM just did that. They laid off 8,000 employees, and guess what? They had to rehire them. And just this morning, before I came on here, I read an interesting article called this, AI Layoffs Backfire. And it basically was saying human plus AI collaboration matters more than pure automation. So it's basically showing some of the examples that Matthew just alluded to that are basically laying off people and then having to rehire them because they haven't thought the whole process through. Now, Microsoft is one of those organizations that's laying off people, which is kind of contradictory to one of the things they're saying here, that the skill sets needed going forward are some of these: emotional intelligence, flexibility, analytical judgment, and creative evaluation, and others, all human factors. And in this particular piece, in the next few years, so whatever we're preparing people for in the future from a Keiser perspective and all the universities, if you look at that top right quadrant, with the exception of two, all of them are people skills: curiosity, talent management, leadership, creative thinking, resilience, analytical thinking, motivation, systems thinking. Only you have just two in there: technological literacy and AI and big data. So you can see even the skill sets going forward is going to be all about the interpersonal skills. So the question I always pose to my students, and I pose it to you all, is the organization ready for these changes? So let me stop and pause there for a second. Any questions or comments before I get into the psychology of today's workforce? In the chat, or you can come off mute. Any surprises, or everybody knew it?
I've noticed that as a graphic designer, there's been some job cuts due to AI, as they want to use the AI to make the branding for a company and everything, thinking that it's a lot better and creative, where it's really not. It's just the algorithms that they're seeing and not paying attention to what the human person puts into the design.
Yeah. And that's going to continue, unfortunately, to happen until they continue to learn. Like I said, this article that just came out today was talking about, as they continue to outsource, downsize, and all this other stuff because of AI, then they have to come back and rehire. And guess what? That violates trust at the end of the day. And I'm going to talk about that. Please provide the reference relating measuring AI impact on the work market. I will in a little bit. I'm going to give you your sources here in a little bit, Dennis. So let's talk about the psychology of today's workforce and the leadership imperative. If I was to go into any organization, my question would be, would people describe your organizational culture using these words? Would they describe it at Keiser or wherever your students work at? Would these be the words they would use? And if not, why not? And if so, how do you know? So because there's going to be some interesting information here that I'll share. This is the state of the workforce psychology today. People are expecting changes and organizations are not keeping up. Almost 8 out of 10 employers are saying pay, well-being is as important as pay. People are looking for happiness. I'm probably the oldest one on the call. And when I was a teenager and went to work, happiness was not the reason for it. But today, people are looking for happiness at work. They're also looking for appreciation. There's a Dan Pink TED Talk out there called Puzzle of Motivation. And in there, they did a study, and he found out, I'm sorry, it wasn't Dan Pink's. It was Boston Consulting Group. And they talk about the workforce crisis of 2030. And they asked 200,000 people worldwide, what are you looking for in your next employer? The number one thing that came back was appreciation. A simple thank you. Pay was number 8. The autonomy, purpose, and mastery, that is the Dan Pink Puzzle of Motivation TED Talk, where he found that people are looking for autonomy, don't micromanage me, purpose, something bigger than me, and mastery, continue to learn whether I'm 25 or 75. And hybrid and remote and flexibility, once you give something to somebody, it's hard to take away. Our brain is not wired for that. How do we transition to the new changes? What skill set will be needed? I'll be talking about that, Yolande, as I get down further road. But I still need to kind of lay out for you what's happening. Simon Sinek says meaning is the new paycheck. So here's some other workforce sentiments that are taking place. 70% of today's workforce feels burnt out, and this is just in the U.S. And 70% prefer a 4-day work week. And by the way, for those countries and companies that are using 4-day work week, and there are several of them, they're actually showing that they are more productive. I retired from Lockheed Martin. They're now at a 4-day work week, and they're a pretty conservative company. So obviously something is going on right. Or if not, they would not allow their employees to be on a 4-day work week. Toxic workplaces lead to this, and I'll talk about lack of sleep in a little bit and unhealthy eating habits. And lastly, more than 1 out of 2 prefer to work remote. 63% would take a pay cut for that. Yet managers consider remote workers to be less productive and less promotable. That's called distance bias. If I don't see you, if you're not in front of me in the same room, then I don't pay attention to, I forget you, out of sight, out of mind. Yet hybrid work improves outcomes, and remote workers seem to be more satisfied and outperform. Actually, there was an interesting study that says they're 72 minutes more productive. I would argue it's probably because they're not 72 minutes sitting on I-4 or anywhere else on the highways that we may have to get on. And then when it comes to employee disengagement, it's costing companies trillions of dollars. This was from 2018 with Gallup. And the 5th cause of death, as cited in this book, Dying for a Paycheck, is work due to stress. It's costing companies billions of dollars, and here's the disengagement cost. And today, U.S. employment engagement sinks to a 10-year low. So what managers and leaders have to do is create a different environment out there and looking for, how do I get my employees more engaged? And remember where I talked about uncertainty at the very beginning. The other thing that's going on is this. Most on the call probably consider themselves pretty good multitaskers. Neuroscientists would say you're kidding yourself. You're lying to yourself. Actually, at best, you're a bad switch tasker. And when you do this, you tend to have 50% more mistakes, longer to complete a task. And actually, neuroscientists tell us you're actually impacting your health. And it sure as heck doesn't help that you're spending this much time on your phone. Neuroscientists again tell us when you do this, you're actually shrinking your brain. This leads to some of the leadership challenges. 71% of them report significant stress. 40% of them are considering stepping down. And it's interesting because I teach a certificate class in management and leadership for Keiser down in Latin America. So quite a few students are going through that. And I tell them, be careful what you wish for, because there's also the great flattening where they're eliminating middle management positions. And the younger generation is looking up and saying, I'm not sure I want to be the boss because I'm watching what's happening to my boss, Dennis. He seems to be stressed out. So I think I may not consider that. So that's called conscious unbossing. And because of all of this that's taken place, 1/3 of people would give up a pay raise to see their boss fired because they don't feel that they're taken care of. Look what it says up there. Employees expect their managers to care about them. And unfortunately, more managers than need to are not. I call this the 70-60 impact. And that is 70% of managers have a bigger impact on their workers than their doctors. For 70% of the workers, their managers, their biggest stress. And unfortunately, 60% of those in management are not trained in management. I experienced that when I got out of the service. When I got in the Air Force, the way you went up into management, they knew you would be getting a rank, so they send you off to leadership training. When I got out into the civilian world, a lifetime ago, last century, when I got into the civilian world, I thought I was getting into progressive space where people would be trained and so forth. I found quite the opposite. What happens there is if you're the best accountant, the best HR person, the best finance person, the best whatever, you're the next boss. And then sometimes we train them and sometimes we don't. This when leadership coaching is exploding as a business and training and development investments are being done across the world. There's another issue too that I have read about from research, but I experienced it firsthand. I was up in doing an executive session. Oh, I'm sorry, Marianne, I see your hand up. I just saw your hand up. Forgive me. Do you have a question? Marianne?
No, I don't have any question.
Okay, I just saw your hand up. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, it's for before. Thank you.
No problem. So I was working with a group of executives in Canada, and I had about 30 to 40 of them in front of me. And I had the CEO literally sitting in front of me. And we were talking about, leadership issues and management issues. And so I asked them on a 1 to 5 scale, each of you rate yourself, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst, how effective you believe you are as a leader. They rated themselves. We took the average, put it up on a flip chart. I said, now rate your managers that are not here with us. They rated them, took the average, we put it up on a flip chart. And I said, now, how do you think your workforce would rate management? They gave me a number, we put it up on a flip chart. Executives rated themselves this. They rated their middle management this. And they said their workforce probably sees them this way. In other words, I'm good, they need help, and the workforce thinks they need help. So again, that's what I call the perception problem in most organizations. So bottom line is this book says how the power of AI can transform the way you lead. As it says here, those in management typically viewed employees as human resources to be managed for optimal productivities. And those days are gone. Because in high trust organizations, here are the things that turn out. This, by the way, in a day and age when 20% of the employees only 20% of the employees trust their leaders. That means that 4 out of 5 do not. But when you do create the right environment and the right culture and you create high trust organizations, this is what starts to happen. And when it comes to creating a supportive and meaningful work culture, it leads to productivity, innovation, and being committed. And in the era of AI, leaders need to be aware, wise, and compassionate, things that cannot be replaced by human the AI cannot replace these human factors. And as you see there, when that happens, employees feel this way. So for anyone wondering where's the research coming from, you're kind of seeing it there. And by the way, this has bottom line implications. The company's great place to work experiences, those employees tend to outproduce those companies not in there. So in other words, if I take care of Dennis, if I treat him with dignity and respect, or Jennifer or Deborah and so forth, they're going to be more engaged and more committed. Now, if you're wondering if this is just Dr. Marino's opinion, I promise you it's not. So leadership is fundamental. And again, I put this point up. Employees are looking for their managers to care about them, whether it's in Keiser or any of the students that we have that work for organizations. No, doesn't include the benefits. This is just about how do I feel? So here's the research where I'm pulling this information from. And I've done you the favor. I've read all these books. 3 of them I've written. I'm a senior fellow on the conference board. So I'm constantly out there looking to see what is taking place, what is going on in these organizations, what's changing. The longevity economy is all about the aging workforce. You can see their humanocracy. How do we change that up? The leading brain, as I'm going to talk about that next week on neuroscience and neuroleadership. The mind of the leader talks about that. The end of loyalty. It has some interesting things there because I've heard older generations say the younger generation is just not loyal. So there's those biases against older, against the younger, and so forth. So there's the research that keeps coming out. This is not just these books and magazines. There's other research out there. I'm sure you all can find scholarly research and so forth that are cited as to what is happening in the workplace at the end of the day. Can you send us a list of these books? Rachel says. I will send the slide to, is it Dr. Diane? I'll send it to her and then she can make it available to all of you. At the end of the day, what these books are saying is organizations that are human focused are going to beat out the competition every time. Yet you still saw what I showed you at the beginning. Yet you're still seeing organizations downsizing. I just saw a study that said for every $1 that a company saved for downsizing, it actually spent $1.67. So literally, it's not even helping the bottom line for downsizing. And that's not including the trust factor, psychological safety, and everything else that people start freaking out, wondering, am I going to lose my job? So my question to you is this. Organizations can either rationalize, or as Stephen Covey would say, tell themselves rationalize and continue going down that path, or they taking care of themselves and the company. So I want to pause here for a second and ask what comments, questions, or reactions may you have based on what I just wrote here, or what I just shared with you. So it's not just me one way. Were there any surprises? This is the quietest group I've ever had because my students are never quiet.
Dr. Marino, hello. This is Lisa Marie Winslow. How are you doing?
I am good, Lisa. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Hey, I just wanted to offer a comment on the early part of your presentation with regards to the question about AI, replacing individuals and jobs. And, when it comes down to it, and just supporting your data here and looking at organizations, AI still cannot replicate culture and those qualities of what make a good leader, and some of those things that you displayed there, that at least right now AI cannot replicate that. And so when you're talking about an organization's culture, and i.e. their brand, because the two are really intertwined, while AI can make us more productive, hopefully we could use it to better all of our lives, our work lives, and even our personal lives. But ultimately, I think people, when it comes to a company's culture and who they are, AI is not going to replace that. And if you try to do it, we're really going to lose the human element of what culture is all about.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And amen to your comment, because you saw early on. So IBM just eliminated 8,000 jobs and had to rehire those same 8,000 people. And then today I just posted another article which says all these companies that are downsizing, now all of a sudden they have to call the people back. Well, think about it. Why would you go back to a company that just laid you off? Some would say, okay, if I don't have a job, I got to go get it. But am I going to trust them? They laid me off once. Why won't they lay me off a second time? type of thing. So it's all about the bottom line versus, you know what, at the end of the day, you're still going to need humanity. And we have a major skill shortage in this country. So, the university is in a great position to help these people skill up. But as long as these organizations create a toxic workplace or an unhealthy workplace where you're just a number, people are going to get that. And then they wonder why the younger generation is not loyal. Well, they watch their parents get downsized, outsourced, re-engineered, or whatever other term you want to use. And so they're saying, why do I need to be loyal if at the end of the day, you're going to get rid of me? And oh, by the way, work is the 5th cause of death due to stress. So those are very relevant issues, and I appreciate that, Dr. Winslow. Any other comments or questions on this before I move on? Or any other reactions?
Okay. Hello.
Yes.
My name is Dennis Rodriguez. I would like to make a comment about your presentation so far. Most of your insight of this amazing research, match with the project management approaches. I am a project management. I am a certification as a project management, and most of your insight match with a couple of research that we have been doing and reading. So that means we are on the same page, like you mentioned. And the management, as a management manager, also has been dealing with this kind of issues, and I think it reflects what is your research about. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. It's interesting. I think, Dennis, or if you just mentioned project management, I just read an article a couple of days ago that said project management is one that's going to be impacted very soon by AI. I would say, yeah, probably so, but no different than an accountant. An accountant back in the day needed a calculator and a spreadsheet and so forth. Nowadays, they have Excel, they have Access, they have all these tools. So my argument is, yeah, project manager will have different tools at their disposal now to make their work more efficient. There's redundant work that we don't want to do. And if we can get that off our plate, why not at the end of the day? So yeah, I hear you. And I think it's just a matter of how do we get AI to complement what we're doing? And if there's things that, oh, and by the way, you saw how many jobs it's going to create. That means there's jobs out there today that we don't know of. They haven't been created yet. No different than before the computer came into the mix, it was called a typewriter. We didn't have this. And it's a matter of fact, it's funny for me sometimes when somebody's trying to Zoom me or whatever, they forget, if technology is bad, pick up the phone and call me. It's okay. There is this old method that still works. And if people are, oh my God, I can't talk to you because Zoom isn't working. Okay, can you not call me? So we lose track of these old ways of doing business that still have not gone away. Thank you, Dennis. Any other comments or questions before I move on?
I have seen that even though Amazon has laid off a lot of employees, they have started to go and start to rehire them back because they're needing those positions filled that have just been vacant. And it's hard for them because a lot of the people are like you said, why would I want to go back when you could lay me off again?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. So those companies are going to get a bad brand reputation. And nowadays there's a thing that didn't exist before. It's called Glassdoor. So I can go out there and look real quick and go, so what's the reputation of this company? Do I even want to go back? Plus word spreads like wildfire because people put out there on these different mediums, technology, hey, this is what's going on in this company. So yeah, that's definitely an issue. Any other comments or questions before I move on to some considerations? Okay. So I would suggest that in order to create a healthy workplace, you might want to consider a multi-pronged approach. And I've created some questionnaires that people can use to consider. The very first one, particularly for leaders, remember 70% of them are stressed out, and for 70% of the workforce, they're the biggest stressor. So one of the things I would suggest is, as it says here, and I think Lisa Marie mentioned it earlier, organizational culture has become the strategic priority with impact on the bottom line. If it's a healthy culture, people know it. If it's not a healthy culture, people also know it, and word spreads. So one of the things that here's something that some of you, it may demoralize you, maybe. It turns out that we're going to spend 90,000 hours of our adult waking life at work. So depending on where you are in your career, 90,000 hours of our waking life at work. So it would make sense that you would think about, how about we take care of ourselves? I like to call that the put your mask on first. So next time you get on a plane and they tell you to, if the mask drop down, put yours on first, that's what I would suggest here. The same thing. If you're going to have to work these many hours, find a great place, make sure you got a good manager and so forth in order to be in a healthy place overall. And the Dalai Lama would tell us, he co-wrote this book, The Art of Happiness at Work. He says happiness at work can lead to happiness in life. Because think about it. The brain is wired in a way to look toward the future. So when my students, I have class on Thursday nights, I always say, happy little Friday. Why do I say that? Because we're already thinking of the weekend. Now, what happens on Sunday? They're already thinking about Monday. And what I've read on LinkedIn is how everybody thinks about your organization on Sunday night tells you all you need to know about your organizational culture. What's the environment like? So again, he says, if you're happy at work, it leads to, positions you to be more happiness in life. Now, some of the things I suggest for people to take care of themselves are these. From the brain, anything from meditation till mindfulness, which is gaining a lot of momentum, and other things to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Exercise doesn't mean you have to go run a marathon. 20 minutes 3 times a week, just walking is good for you. Sleep. If you've ever had a bad night's sleep, where the next day you did not get a good night's sleep, how did you feel? Let me guess. Lethargic, irritable, not clear-headed, and some of those things. Neuroscientists tell us you need to recharge your brain, and sleep is the way to recharge it. It literally says you're cleaning out the garbage, the brain through sleep, and actually cleaning out the garbage of the day before. Music is good for us. In my doctoral program, I remember I used to walk into my class, and the last place I wanted to do was walk into class after a day of work. But when I walked in, the professor had Mozart playing in the background. And all of a sudden, I got into a good mood. All of a sudden, I felt relaxed. It turns out that Mozart, the way he created his music, our brain is melodic. And so it turns out that if I was to play a certain song, let's say from the 90s, and you might hear it, you might go, I remember where I was when I heard that. We are all wired that way. As a matter of fact, I saw this in living color with my uncle who had Alzheimer's, may he rest in peace. When I used to pick him up at his assisted living place and we'd drive over to my house, I would play Julio Iglesias music in the back for us to sing the songs, and he knew the lyrics better than I did. He may not remember his name, but he knew the music. So music is important.
Convert short-term to long-term memory too is from actually REM sleep. REM sleep
Yes.
cycle.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Thank you for that. Add any information. The other thing is time to eat. Eat healthy. There's a lot of bad food out there and good food. And something that we seem to forget as adults is just to have some fun and enjoy ourselves. Life is too doggone short. And lastly, but not least important, is relationships. It turns out in the Blue Zones, if you haven't seen the Blue Zone documentary, I highly recommend you do it. It's the 5 areas of the world which has the largest concentration of centurions, people over 100. One of the things they do is relationships. They also seem to drink wine wherever, at least in Greece and Italy, type thing. But relationships is important. So what I did was I created this questionnaire, which I'm actually giving to my students tonight, to have them reflect and look in the mirror and go, how are you taking care of yourself? Because if you're not, and you're getting the certificate in management and leadership, how can you worry about taking care of others if you're not taking care of yourself? So I give them this to reflect on. And it leads to all emotional resilience. The other thing is this for leaders, they don't realize, any of you in management, when you stepped into management, that you were taking on these 5 roles. You're a celebrity because the spotlight is on you. Everybody's watching if what you say jives with what you do. You're a quasi-psychologist, and I am no way trying to diminish that role because I one time wanted to be a psychologist and sociologist, but you're a quasi-psychologist. Why? Because I, as a manager, show up with my own insecurities, my own personal issues, my strengths, and so forth. And then the interaction I have with Vincent, he shows up with his. And then how I treat him, that conversation could go well or not. Quasi-sociologist because of team dynamics. Quasi-anthropologist goes back to Lisa Marie's point, culture. And lastly, a conductor of an orchestra, because as a leader, as a manager, you're responsible for your diverse workforce. They bring in their strengths, weaknesses, different experiences, perspectives, and so forth. So how do you maximize the diversity of that team? And that's why I wrote this book, The Boss for the 21st Century, Behaviors of Smart Supervisors, which is from supervisors to senior executives, just came out this month. And I talk about these issues here. So that's one of the things. And in turn, trying to create a brain-friendly workplace, which I'll be talking more about next week in the neuroleadership and neuroscience. Create a place where we show up, where we feel psychologically safe, where we feel listened to, where we feel that a manager is empathetic and compassionate. So imagine Vincent gets downsized from Amazon, and then they say, oops, we made a mistake. We'll call you back. Vincent's going to be second guessing and wondering if he really wants to go back. Or at least he may go back temporarily, but be actively looking for another place to work. And in order to make human-centered organizations, I've been on a journey saying that what we need in the era of AI is HI, human intelligent workplace. And I define that in the following manner. It's where you have effective leadership behaviors that create organizational culture where the workers' experience is engaged, collaborating with a diverse team. And lastly, it's also where the workforce feels psychologically safe, listened to, and find satisfaction in their work in the organization. The words in red and underlined are particularly important because all of those have extensive research behind it. Listen to, it turns out, I believe 5% of leaders are effective listeners and communicators. Listen to that. 5% of leaders are effective listeners and communicators. So there's a lot of space there. And by the way, I've been in this business long enough that when I did communications training back in the Air Force, communication was a problem back then. Fast forward more than 30 years, communication is still a problem. So the more things change, the more they remain the same. And then since organizations have to change, and that's what I started this whole talk with, Lippitt and Costner created this model. They said you need leadership commitment, vision, skills, incentives, resources, and action plan in order to change effectively. And if you don't have any one of these, this is what you have. Confusion, anxiety, gradual change, frustration, and false starts. I added this one. If you don't have the leadership commitment, you're going to have a disengaged workforce. And remember, at the very beginning, I said 66% of change efforts fail. So something is missing in these change efforts in these organizations. So I circle back around to this. In the era of AI, organizations will need leaders with a human touch. And by that, I mean, A, be happy and healthy yourself. Take care of yourself and in turn, create an environment that's happy and healthy. B, be aware of your unconscious biases. We all have them. Be aware of them. If I turn out and every time I pick a team, I pick just gentlemen to be on my team, and I don't realize I'm not picking any women, why am I not picking any women? I may not even realize that until Lisa Marie points it out to me. And it may just be an unconscious bias I had and did not realize it. And then mind is, you spend a lot of time in our mind, make it a healthy place. And appreciate, I shared that study with you of 200,000 people worldwide. All they wanted was a thank you. Pay was number 8. And new is a new way of doing business. We're in 2025, in this 21st century. We cannot continue with the same practices and models of the 20th century. They didn't work then. Why do you think they're going to work now? And some companies are still repeating that now. We're still downsizing like we did back then. And most of those organizations that downsized back then are a shadow of themselves today. I'll give you a perfect example. GE. With Jack Welch back in the day. He was known also as Neutron Jack. So there's a boatload of books on leadership by him, but he's a walking contradiction because he was known as Neutron Jack because he would go into organizations in small towns, and if they were not effective, they'd blow them up, and all those people lost their livelihoods. So how could you talk leadership and and on the other side eliminate all these people? What happened to the humanity there? As a matter of fact, there's an interesting book that came out a year or two ago on Jack Welch and how he basically destroyed capitalism because of what he did in corporate America back in the day. So if you want to Google that, you can find out more of that. So that's kind of what I begin to bring you with. And here's a summary. If anyone went and took the quiz, here are the answers. Any 4s out of 5s, any 5s out of 5s, any 6s? You write it in the chat or speak up.
Definitely not 100%, but not too far off, and about 3 out of 5.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That means there was a little learning in there, and that's good.
Yes, there was. Thank you.
Sure. So let me ask you all as I begin to close this out. What are you taking away when you think about leaders create culture, culture drives behavior, and behavior produces results, which is kind of what Lisa Marie was alluding to earlier. So what do you take away from this presentation? Comments, thoughts, reactions, questions? Either in the chat or come off mute. Yolanda, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Yes,
One of my takeaway of this presentation is that we as a professor, a different role that we have been playing during the last couple of years. First of all, we need to be a human being first, and then we have a couple of challenges. One of them is the new technology. In this case, it's artificial intelligence. But I think we should embrace technology. We should embrace technology. We synchronize technology with our daily life and learn through technology, and then take advantage of it instead of create a culture of aware of the technology, create a culture of embrace new thing and move on. Thank you.
sure. Thank you. And actually, if you come back next week, I'll talk a little bit about that too, as to why that has some implications when I get into neuroscience or neuro leadership. Yolanda, yes, please.
We're still relevant. Humans are.
Yes.
And like the last speaker, we do need to engage in the newness that we're upon now, and continue to. But still, we need the human being.
Agreed 100%. Any other questions or comments? By the way, if you go to my website, what you see there, the Perfect Human Capital Storm, you can download that free. And sort of my updated version that I went and did using some AI. The content is all mine, but I use some things to jazz it up a little bit. But the content is there to give you sort of a newer version of what I originally wrote, the Perfect Human Capital Storm.
I'd just like to say that if companies like Amazon and the others, that instead of them just fully embracing the AI and relying on that, and like Yolanda said, to include the humans into it, then they wouldn't be losing the business that they have, and they wouldn't be losing employees that they would try to hire back because of them just laying people off and wanting to rehire. If they just embraced both and became a better leader, that would make everything a lot better for these companies.
Yes, and unfortunately, we keep repeating the same mistakes. Like I said, you heard me talking about GE back in the 90s. They created the ranking system. Some of those IT companies came up with it or copied it, and then they did away with it. Well, guess what? Now they're using it again. So what does that mean? I'm going to rank Vincent, Yolande, and Dennis, and one of them won't have a job here at the end of the year. How excited are they going to be living in that kind of environment, working in that kind of environment? So that, unfortunately, these companies continue to repeat the mistakes. You go on my website, you'll see some of the history of organizations, what they do, and here we are today.
Creates competition, which then creates more problems with the three people you just mentioned, me and the other two.
Right, and we want us to be working as a team and collaborate and help each other. But Vincent's got to take care of himself so that he can provide livelihood for his family. Why is he going to help Dennis or Yolande? He's got to make sure that he's here next year.
I think the biggest takeaway from your speech, sorry to interject again, would be that you said leaders listen. Well, it's also it's very important to listen, because that's the difference between a smart and a wise person. A smart person knows what to say. A wise person knows when to say it, implying leaders are better listeners.
Amen. Thank you, Vincent. Claudette, what about you? It looks like you're on the same planet as Yolande. Any comments or questions?
I just wanted to say I really enjoyed the presentation. I apologize for coming in late, but you gave me some hope. And there's that being caring and supporting, the evidence shows, works for the bottom line. And that brings hope to me. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So help me, all of you, help me pass the word forward as best you can, because the more we do that, maybe somebody will start listening. I'm waiting for a call from Bezos to see if he's going to change his mindset. Tracy, any thoughts from you or questions?
Oh, that was just me.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I thought it was Claudette. My apologies.
Yeah, no worries.
Any thoughts, Claudette, or reactions or questions? You're on mute. By the way, those are 4 sunsets behind my house. Whenever I want to read and get philosophical and have a glass of wine, I just sit back there and take a picture. You're still on mute, Claudette. And Mary M, any words or thoughts or questions from you or reactions?
No, thank you. I don't have any questions.
Okay. So Dr. Dynaneman, any thoughts, reactions, or anything from you?
This was a wonderful presentation. Really, I just have a lot to think about with this one. I certainly was very surprised about those percentages and the questions you asked us. My answers were quite different. So that was very interesting. And I'm excited for your presentation again next week, your next presentation. So
Yeah,
everybody, yeah.
Thank you for that. So all of you are invited back next week, same time, same bat channel, if any of you remember that. We will be talking about the brain. It's not just for the hat and what's going on there and the importance of that and why that's taking place. So some of you may have heard of emotional intelligence. I call what I'm going to talk about next week EQ 2.0, a next iteration of what's going on and why that's getting a lot of research, a lot of writings on it, a lot of talk on it. So hopefully you get a chance to come back, have some lunch and listen into what do I need to remember about this.
Okay, and Claudette is now off mute.
Awesome.
And yes, thank you. I had the concerns that have been shared about AI, that the human aspect of it was not being considered, the contributions humans make to the society. And I'm glad that so many persons share the importance of the human input.
Thank you. Yep, we're going to continue to be important. Heck, at the end of the day, if you think about it, we're the ones that create AI, and then we make them smart. So how do we use it? It's just going to be a super advanced tool, and hopefully we won't do any harm to each other, even though already we're doing when it comes to downsizing. Oh, and now I got to rehire them types of things.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Well, nothing better than to get out 5 minutes early from class or presentation or whatever you want to call it. So thank you very much for your time. I will be here next week to talk to you about neuroscience and neuroleadership and the implications for organizations. Thank you. And I will send the one slide with all the book references. Like I said, it must be a book nerd because I read them all and some of them I wrote. So thank you.
I will post that in the RSC. So you can all find it. If you're not in the RSC, please register. It's self-registering. Click on that link when you log in the Blackboard. It'll take you there and you can opt in and you will be able to find it next to where his presentation flyer is. I will upload the slide so that you can click on it and download that slide with the books. The recording will also be located there once we have it.
Great. Thank you all.
Everybody.
Enjoy your little Friday.
Thank you.
So much. This was wonderful.
Take care.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.